Yeah, I'm trying this thing where I'm...
WARPAINT.
They'll take you.
Fuck you! I was right! Fuck you! I was right!
You need to remember that.
By sharing this video.
Oh no! Fuck. Yeah.
Thank you for joining another Monday edition of WARPAINT here on the Warboy Studios. I'm very excited for today's episode that I have entitled The Karmelo Anthony Effect. I don't know if other people have used this phrase before, but I'm going to claim ownership of it. Basically, it is the I don't give an F attitude that whites have collectively agreed upon, only the good ones at least, since it has been open season on white people, white culture, white anything. Karmelo Carmelo Anthony was the wake-up call that tribalism is not only acceptable when it comes to darker pigmented people. We will begin with a not neutral news segment, followed by some cultural commentary with me and my producer, Charles. In the meantime, we're going to start with a simultaneous sip a la Scott Adams. So if you will, Charles, join us, and we will do a great show. And to further discussions like this in the future, may you all start having them. Here we go. All right. So it's going to be a very good edition of WARPAINT today, ladies and gentlemen. Share, like, subscribe. Make sure that you are following all of us. Make sure you tell your friends that we're live right now. And stay tuned because it's time to put it on. Welcome to WARPAINT, sir.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn.
Music and the truth until dawn.
Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. Occupied zone.
The chair is against the wall.
The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory, tree. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
You see that nigga sweater vest? Oh, shit! What the fuck? Nah, that's pretty fresh, dog. I'm a white-ass nigga going hard in these streets. Going non-stop like a smoke alarm beats. All of you niggas gon' be shit out of love. When these white-ass niggas go hard as fuck. 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 I speak perfect English without any accent. I can read and write unlike half of these black kids. Yeah, white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant represent. Woo. I can say the word nigga cause nigga we invented it. We got science, medicine, and technology. Every nigga wants to live in my colony. So don't you lecture me with that equality shit. We're going hard as fuck with no apologies, bitch. I'm a white ass nigga going hard in these streets. Going non-stop like you smoke alarm beats. All of you niggas gon' be shit out of luck. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. When it comes to work, you know I'm always on time. Hey. You never catch me late or see me cutting in line. Oh, yeah. All my neighbors love me cause I'm such a nice guy. Hey, yeah. And I never take advice from a bunch of rabbis. Yeah. No, I can't spend a lot of time in the sun, but I always find time to spend with my son. And I still call my dad at least once a week just to let him know I'm going hard in these streets. I'm a white ass nigga going hard in these streets. Going non-stop like you smoke alarm beeps. All of you niggas gon' be shit out of love. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. When these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. 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 I don't let nobody tell me what to do. No, I ain't listening to any whiny Jews. No niggas gonna tell me not to love my own race. And we're gonna put women back in their fucking place. All my niggas really fucking love being white. And we're never gonna say sorry for being right. And when whites are allowed to unite, good luck. Cause these white ass niggas go hard as fuck. I'm a white ass nigga going hard in these streets. Going non-stop like a smoke alarm beat. these white ass niggas go hard as fuck.
You are now banned from the computer. Goodbye.
They told you the war was over, and that the culture battle was done, dusted, settled. They told you to go home, smile nice, and obey. But you're here. And so am I. Which means it's not over. Who wants to begin?
I'm tired of sleeping and dreaming. Hop out the shell of a being. I'm tired of working and bleeding. I am the God and I mean it.
There can be only one.
Pouring up another scene. Papa got the vaccine, so ain't no acting, plain no practice. Niggas wanna check this album playlist. Fuck you, pay me. I'm tired of sleeping and dreaming. How about the shell of a being? I'm tired of working and bleeding. I am the God and I mean it.
Girls and guys, gather round and feast your eyes. I promise you all, you just can't lose when you've got your own supply of
not neutral news.
What's to do with it?
Show it to your parents. Show it to your friends. When you've got your
Not neutral
news, the fun of ends.
This is kind of gross.
Kick that nigger bitch off the plane! You may have heard the phrase that looks can be deceiving. I'm sure that when you've tried it, you all will be believing. And did I mention it's free?
I'll take some.
There you go.
Hello, guys and girls and guys. Gather around and feast your eyes, I guess ears as well. Got some news for you today. It's going to flow rather well into Kim's topic. Some things that have been glossed over and some threads that I think need some connection. Now, we're going to start with a story some of you might have forgotten. It's one of Kaylee Gain. She went to Hazelwood East High School in St. Louis, Minnesota. She was brutally attacked by some classmates. After class, it was established that there had been some verbal altercations. You know how girls get. They get catty with one another. The response here was a group of black students beat her viciously, ending and culminating with her getting her head cracked against the sidewalk. She still suffers from cognitive impairment. The unnamed 15-year-old assailant didn't do nothing, naturally, was then hailed as a good girl, and it was claimed that she went to school frequently, and that this is the first time she's been criminally charged with such an attack. But this, in my opinion, especially if you watch the video, it's not the sort of violence that is a first-time occasion or a first-time occurrence. Ultimately, she was given probation, because who cares if she beat the other girl into permanent cognitive impairment via concrete? You can't be racist now, can you? It's been a pattern that we see, not just in this case, but in several others. Specifically, one people will remember is Jordan Neely. Jordan Neely had 42 arrests under his record. That's 4 criminal assaults. He actively had an active warrant from an assault in 2021. He'd been on the run, walking freely and committing crimes for years. When you teach criminals that there are no consequences for their actions and you don't actually punish them, you teach victims that there is no justice to be found within the law. It's just a statement of fact. You also derail any confidence one might have or develop for the system as it currently exists. That again is a picture of Kaylee Gain before the attack, and to the right is during the attack. It was pretty brutal. I didn't want to show a clip of it just for respect for the girl. It was nasty. Now, moving on to Jordan Neely, he was an active drug addict who enjoyed the toxic K2 synthetic cannabinoids due to the intensity of its high and its ease of availability. The K2 and synthetic cannabis is something you'll find frequently among people who later use cognitive impairment or insanity as part of their plea in defense. They utilize drugs because there already is something wrong with them. We used to have an asylum network in this country, but due to abuses just person to person, and through structural and systematic abuses, through the deprivation of necessary finances, hard-nosed stances from people who, senators and congressmen specifically, who, while being invested in big pharma, big tobacco, and big alcohol, weren't willing to make sure that these lunatics were heavily sedated with top-of-the-line drugs that didn't cause further forms of psychosis and neurotic development of atrophy, because there's plenty of compounds you can give a big burly guy who won't stop yelling about the voices that'll calm his ass down, but if it's something that's going to eventually erode centers of his brain and make him less capable of ever being personable, what are you doing? You're creating more problems and kicking the can down the road. The entire system is broken when we have 42 arrests on someone's jacket. They're known to be violent, and they're simply wandering the streets. It brings us to Irina Zarutska and to Carlos Brown Jr. Everyone remembers Irina this summer. The man who killed her, he had 14 arrests in his jacket for felony larceny, armed robbery with a dangerous weapon, burglary, shoplifting, assault with a deadly weapon, making threats and communicating threats, misuse of the 911 and false emergency system. Since 2011, he'd been committing about a crime a year or a crime every 16 months. Finally, in 2020, he was locked up for felony larceny and armed robbery, but he was released after a year incarcerated. Now, mind you, that means most of these arrests he'd collected on his record weren't enough to dictate that perhaps he is not a good person to interact with the general members of society. Judges largely either bought and paid for by the Open Society Soros Foundation, who pay for their law schooling, or they've been ideologically captured. They believe a utopia is possible by treating the criminal with kid gloves because he's a victim of society. It laments back to this myth of the noble savage we discussed previously, where people believe that the primitive, those who are outside of society's scape and don't understand the complexities of higher living and the complexities of human interaction, they're somehow not responsible for their actions in a higher society. It's nonsensical, illogical, and at the basis of it, it is in fact racist. It presumes that the average state of intellectual being for an African American or any sort of immigrant with dark skin is so far beneath that of the average person that they couldn't possibly have understood what they'd done. Try explaining this. I mean, we interviewed Stephen Wells recently on this network, and the same concept was applied there. If you actually applied the behavior of the state to the state, transposed it against what they associate with fascism, Nazism, and inherent abhorrent cruelty, you would see that in fact we're engaging in some of these same practices, even on the left. The far left engages in these same ideological practices and devices to organize people based on intrinsic traits. It's backwards and asinine, and it can't happen in a functional society. But to continue on with the news, since 2011, he'd been committing about a crime a year every 16 months. He was released early after serving a year for felony larceny and armed robbery. When released early, he attacked his sister and continued to create chaos and spout insane theories, this time about his body being essentially biochemically engineered to commit crime. It's a fascinating theory. He then murdered Miss Irina Zarutska before bragging about getting that white girl, meaning he was competent enough to know exactly what he'd done, wasn't lashing out at the scientists or the evil bad men who had biochemically programmed or tortured him or, coerced him. He was simply excited about achieving the murder of a white girl. A white girl who we should not fail to mention had escaped the Ukrainian war and come here as a refugee, and was, I believe, working at a laundrette or a pizza parlor when she was murdered on her way home. It's heartbreaking, but now we move to another very similar case that's much more recent. Bethany McGee and Lawrence Reed. Now, Bethany McGee was coming home from work on the subway when a criminal piece of shit set her on fire from behind, yelling, "Burn, bitch," and "I burned that bitch." 72 arrests over his lifetime. Mr. Lawrence Reed had 15 convictions, including the past arson attack of a government building in 2020, presumed to be related to his lack of receipt of some form of taxpayer-funded welfare or disability payments. Some give-a-mouse-a-cookie bullshit that had convinced this man it was entirely within his right to set fire to a building where he not to receive his free gibs, his give-me-dats. This this lowly piece of shit. You want to blame mental illness, then he should have been, I don't know, at some point in the previous 72 arrests, it should have been identified that he's not the kind of person who should be allowed to simply interact with the public. At what point does a mature adult enter the room and say, yeah, you're not going to learn to play well with others. I'm not putting you on a small timeout. and then letting you go back because you're going to be filling containers with gasoline and flinging them around. It was 2 government buildings. That wasn't enough. Days before the arson attack and attempted murder of Miss McGee, he was suspected to have attempted to burn yet another government building with petrol he'd purchased at a do-it-yourself gas pump, filling in a small glass container, as was his modus operandi for the attack on Miss McGee. Miss McGee was working, essentially, her job to make sure that Mr. Reed could eat, drink, and be merry. And how did he reward her? It is the normal people who are feeding into this system and the government in control of dispersing our tax funds, paying judges instead of punishing them for releasing these people, paying for services that encourage needle exchange. It's ridiculous. It's retarded, not to be woefully edgy and simply say the word retarded. It's retarded because it retards progress. How can you progress in a society if basic law and order aren't maintained? And how are people supposed to feel about society and the government in general if they are willing to look the other way while the innocent are subjected to the merciless and the aggressive, all on the sake of some false altar of not being called racist or bigoted? It's enough to make you, I don't know, gain almost a systemic retaliatory energy whenever you hear about another black person committing a crime against an innocent white woman who was just walking home. It makes you think the entire system is programmed to put these people on a pedestal. Fuck that pedestal. It breeds racism is what it does. It absolutely does. And from a logical standpoint, it becomes pattern recognition. If you were to get attacked by the small percent chance that any individual would be attacked or subjected to a violent crime, I think it's once in a lifetime is the average, depending on your demography, where you're located. But the likelihood that it would happen by a black person, you have to then presume they wouldn't even be punished if you're white. I mean, there's the incident in Portland we can certainly get into where, I don't even have this in my notes, but it's fresh in my memory. A man was stabbed by a black guy. They're both around the same age in their 40s. And after he slashed, he calls him a nigger. At trial, the jury found the black guy who stabbed the white guy not guilty because after the stabbing, the white guy called the black guy a nigger. And I guess anything within 10 minutes of that magic word creates a peripheral bubble of lawless acceptability, where it's like, oh, yeah, I know it was 10 minutes afterwards when you'd already been stabbed, but because you said it, he knew that you had the capacity to say it somehow, so that's why he stabbed you, and that's okay. You can't have a society that functions this way. On a logical basis, you just can't. For the August 2025 aggravated battery case, the Crook County judge who ordered the release of Mr. Lawrence Reed with electronic monitoring despite the prosecutor's request to detain was Cook County Circuit Judge Teresa Molina Gonzalez. Teresa Molina Gonzalez. We like to name and shame on this segment. For the current federal terrorism case, as the state has now pushed Mr. Reed off to the feds, citing their own incompetence and incapability to contain or punish him properly. Yeah. The federal case, his initial appearances are before U.S. Magistrate Judge Laura K. McNally in the Northern District of Illinois. Something you should consider about the feds versus states is states like to take pleas. This next case involves a plea. Plea deals are nonsensical. It's because they don't want to house the person. It comes down to money. But at the same time, private prisons are expected to have an occupancy north of 90%. You're telling me you need the arrests for petty marijuana possession, but you don't have the bed for the guy who's out raping women and stabbing people and setting things on fire. It doesn't make any fucking sense at all. And I think part of the illogical way the system is run is meant to erode public trust. It's cultural Marxism 101. But a man with a violent criminal history is accused of attacking a woman inside her Germantown apartment building after she had walked home from a downtown Sabrina Carpenter concert. He was still serving probation from a previous conviction. Metro National Police say that 29-year-old Joquarius Williams, that's a wife beater, a registered sex offender. He was on probation despite the fact that people were aware he had a proclivity for sexually attacking women. He was on probation. He followed a 25-year-old woman, as yet unnamed, home from a Sabrina Carpenter concert at Bridgestone Arena last week to her apartment complex in Germantown. Investigators say he followed her inside, grabbed her from behind in the elevator, told her he was going to kill her, and began strangling her. The victim briefly lost consciousness, but in a surge of adrenaline managed to escape and run for help. They later identified him through fingerprints left at the scene, as well as DNA evidence, I believe saliva, as he'd been biting her neck. His bond was set at $10.1 million, one of the highest in the Davidson County this year. Just remand without bond. Just no bail. Like what? Obviously he can't be out. Like, If you were given probation for sexual assault and you again tried to sexually assault or attempted murder, in my opinion, by strangling someone, people don't realize how fragile the human body is. People always say, well, why don't you just punch a person? You can kill a person with one punch. I know people who will never walk out of prison because they threw one punch and the guy's head hit the ground wrong. And that's all it takes. So trying to strangle a person, the damage you can do, a grown man squeezing a woman's neck in an attempt to strangle her unconscious, that's attempted murder. Like, the body is pretty frail. We're remarkable at how we can heal. Neuroplasticity is a wonderful conversation to have about the way the brain can heal from trauma or the body can mend. But for the most part, we're pretty brittle. That's why we invent tools and knives and armor, because we don't have sharp teeth and claws and thick skin. To get back to this, they later identified him through fingerprints. His bail was set at $10.1 million. Court records show that Williams has a lengthy history of crime and criminality, including robbery, indecent exposure, sexual battery, and aggravated assault with strangulation. In 2019, he was charged with aggravated rape and aggravated assault. He spent 6 years in jail awaiting his trial for these charges, pled guilty to lesser charges, and as part of the plea deal, he was out on probation. I'll say that again and break it down. He spent 6 years in county jail saying, I didn't try to murder and rape that woman. Spent 6 years waiting for trial, fighting it, probably doing a bunch of sovereign citizen bullshit, holding up the court's time. You know how much it costs to keep him in jail for 6 years? Quite a bit. Quite a bit. Then he was released on probation and immediately attempted to assault and rape another woman. At what point is enough enough? They're holding him on $10.1 million bail. That means he could still potentially, if Diddy wanted to send a check, he could be out again. And the police, the legal system as it's written now, would have no choice but to let him walk free. Does that not seem asinine? Does that not seem like there's something a bit broken in the logic here? We invented the electric chair in this country, by the way. The last story of the day, Opti Mohut Billy Muhammad. He's a serial rapist who's been charged with kidnapping and sexually assaulting a woman over several days in a hotel room, just months after he had been let off with no prison time for 2 other attacks, including the rape of a 15-year-old girl at gunpoint. Mr. Billy Muhammad, I'm not going to attempt that gobbledygook collection of consonants and vowels that he calls a first name, 28 years old. He was only free because of an astonishing plea deal he was given in May in progressive Hennepin County, Minnesota. According to court documents, he was first arrested in September for strangling and raping a woman he'd met on Snapchat. His DNA was then linking him to an earlier horrific attack on a teen at gunpoint. He was sentenced to 3 years and then stayed the sentencing, giving him probation, where he immediately went out and sexually assaulted another woman. He was given 4 years and it was stayed, citing, I believe, his upbringing, his lack of opportunity, and an overcrowded prison system. Some people make the argument that we should just build more prisons. I've heard this argument made by quite a few people. Just build more prisons then. That's the purpose of the tax money. Take it away from giving it overseas and build more prisons. Prison only reforms a person who wishes to be reformed. Repentance only works if it's sincere. So a lot of these people go to prison and it's crime college. Then they join gangs, they continue to extort and abuse people. They watch television, they eat ramen noodles, and they do push-ups. They don't read. They don't take classes unless they think it'll get them time off. And even then, it's usually women with nefarious intentions or people that they know from the street who are willing to pass something off or pass information that are teaching these courses. I mean, the system is so broken. We don't need more incarcerations. We need more executions. We need more lobotomies. It doesn't make sense to keep returning people back out to the street when this is the behavior we see of repeat offenders. It's a Marxist ploy. It's an attempt to damage faith in key institutions and structures necessary to the operating of a nation within the bounds of law and order. And it might be done through suicidal empathy. It's entirely a possibility, but it's a pattern. It's also a pattern that criminals continually claim that they are incompetent to stand trial. But these same people, if it's legally deemed that they are incompetent and they should instead spend some time in an institution or be penalized in some other way other than rampant incarceration, the argument is, why was that person given a driver's license? Why was he allowed to own a gun? Why wasn't he forced to wear a helmet and have a live-in aid and sent to a community? If he's so incompetent that he doesn't understand, you can't slash a child's face in a parking lot or randomly put a woman's head through her car window, why can we not then admit that perhaps there's huge percentages of our society? We can take the Somali invasion as an example. The average IQ is below what we would now consider retarded, below Forrest Gump. So you're not functional, and it's expected that everyone else do their job and live their life in order to take care of you. And I'm not saying to go so Hitlerian that you're cleaning out asylums and committing mass purges of the population. I'm not saying it must be complete eugenic euthanasia, but I am saying some eugenics is probably a decent idea at this point. I mean, we have a percentage of the population that, regardless of race or upbringing, not just mad beasts, but antisocially deprograms and spends all of their time seeking innocence to corrupt. And it's a serious problem. And it happens, it seems, more in sophisticated worlds, because barbaric worlds punish that shit brutally. And we've lost our way in that regard. There's a tweet I'd like to read you before I stand off for the day. This is by Diversity is Our Strength, or Diversity Friend, F-R-E-N. So, a black murders Austin Metcalf. A black murders Irina Zarutska. A black sets a woman on fire on a train. A black is set free because the guy he stabbed unprovoked called him the N-word afterwards. And you want me to give a single fuck about a woman telling off Somali trash? Fuck off. Team sports. Please remember that we didn't ask for team sports. We asked that everyone wear deodorant and learn to read and obey basic traffic laws and not sell heroin. We just asked for normality in a Western civilized sense. When that was refused us, we were attacked as the problem. They wanted team sports. So recognize your team and stand alongside it. And be prepared. If all white people are responsible for every horrible thing any individual white person has ever done, then I'd like to know why every black person in America murdered Irina Zarutska. I'd like to know why. And it's not a question they're prepared to answer, because they only like racial guilt to go in one direction. And it's a childish mentality that they've got to snap out of. Lots of people do. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how we do, kids. As always, this has been Not Neutral News. We don't just tell you the truth, we tell you what's right, because we're not like everyone else, who's also quite bigoted in their portrayal of information. We tell you we're not biased, we're not neutral, but we're right. We're far right.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get ready to rumble. Barry Ramey here with the Warboy Studios, and I have for you an official update. Negotiated through none other than our very own colleague, Kim Coulter, Patrick Riley of Patty Don't Surf has agreed to challenge Paul Miller, the Gypsy Crusader, in a one-on-one bare-knuckle brawl. Previously, a few weeks ago, on Kim Coulter's show, Warpaint, Patrick Riley of Patty Don't Surf used some very ominous and very harsh tone with our guest, Gypsy Crusader. When asked to walk back that statement, Patrick did not do so and doubled down. And I know what you're probably thinking, that there's no way the Gypsy Crusader stands a chance against somebody who is the epitome of liberal masculinity, such as Patrick Riley. Paul Miller has an extensive background in mixed martial arts and competitive fighting, while Patrick Riley took pictures on a Navy boat, and he once kissed Stephen Colbert on the mouth. Tune in to the Warboy Studios and hit that notification button so you can be first on the scene when Patrick Riley and the Gypsy Crusader go one-on-one, bare-knuckle style. Warboy Studios, I'm out.
All right, that was a shout out to Barry over at the Warboy Studios. Make sure you're following him if you aren't already. Let's bring Charles out here, and we're just going to discuss, I'm going to call it my coin term, the Karmelo Anthony effect. Charles, what do you think of my assessment of the situation?
Well, for the audience, do you want to state it again? Or...
I will. For those of you tuning in that weren't here for my introduction, basically, I will preface this by saying I'm not sure if other people are using this phrase, but I am definitely using it. I'm going to claim it. So the Karmelo Anthony effect is essentially the the absence of white guilt after the realization that tribalization doesn't end with morality. When you could murder a white kid because you're black and not only get away with it, not be held on bail on a ridiculously high bail, but make hundreds of thousands of dollars when you are it's not a question of doubt whether or not he is a murderer. He is a murderer. And the only thing that mattered to the people donating was his skin tone. Now, I don't think there are many white people who would actually stand by a murderer. So when situations like our Cinnabon friend happen, when a couple of Somalis come in who are already ungrateful and more likely to scam our government than the average person, the average citizen, you don't really care as much when that person decides, I don't care about my job at Cinnabon. I'm going to tell these niggers to fuck off. And I don't think I'm not gonna sit here actually and posture about like whether or not I would do it. I mean, I probably wouldn't unless I was strapped, to be quite frank, because we know that these are not situations where people tend to yell back, they tend to attack. So again, the Carmelo Anthony effect, whether or not you agree with the action, you can stand by the person because tribalism is okay, whether or not you are black, Mexican, Jewish, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. If I will stand by Japan and Israel and their right to exist as an ethno state. And I expect that reciprocated. And I feel the same way when it comes to what I'm calling the Carmelo Anthony effect. People are done, and you aren't allowed. It's no longer, and I mean, there's ways to go. Just like when homosexuality was at first making the mainstream debut, it took a while for people to accept that, and now it's mainstream accepted. And this is just one of those things, because the average person, when you present them with this kind of information, is going to look at it and go, you know what? Fuck it. I don't mind identifying as a white person. I don't mind saying maybe I wouldn't have said those words, but this person now needs our help and we're going to help them. What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, it's ridiculous that every single nation and group of people can have pride in their own kind and in their own nation, their own group, except the whites, except people from Europe, nationally speaking, people of the white skin from, England, France, Germany. So, yeah, I have to agree. Every individual situation is going to be just that, an individual situation. I'm not going to blanket cover every single possible hypothetical under a one size fits all, declaration. But generally speaking, yeah, I'm gonna give someone benefit of the doubt or a little credit here and there, because being depends on, it's the whole victim tier list. The people at the bottom are the white straight Christian males, so yeah.
And the thing too, I'm sorry to interrupt you to say this, but I'm arguing with both sides about this Cinnabon girl. A lot of people are like, well, hold on, she's a leftist. It doesn't matter that, no, we don't hyphenate when it comes to this stuff. It's very important that we decide what matters and what doesn't matter. And then a lot of other people, I'll say this as well. I don't think it should be illegal, but in general, I don't think races should be mixing. For medical reasons primarily, it's harder to get blood transfusions. It's harder to get organ transplants. There's a lot of legitimate science behind race mixing not being good in the long term. There's a lot of disease, and disease probably isn't genetic error. I'm not going to pretend to know the accurate terminology here, but that's primarily, and also there's really nothing wrong with wanting your family to look like you. There's nothing wrong with wanting your grandkids and your kids to look like you and to marry somebody that has similar heritage. I think that that's a totally reasonable thing. And you
nothing
don't have
wrong with being proud of your heritage.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, a lot of the parents that I know of all races feel this way. They would much rather their kid marry within and it's literally part of Jewish religion is that you should marry within your own religion, and in their case their religion's also an ethnicity. So this isn't something that is uncommon in society. I'm just gonna put that up for a second, but I also don't think that. So this woman is she posted a picture of a Kamala Harris sign. There's no caption, so I think there's room for interpretation there. But I also she has the black or the mixed son, who had cancer, and I haven't confirmed whether or not the kid died or not. Someone had told me that the kid died, but I hadn't been able to confirm that accuracy of that. But obviously she's a single mom. We know she's a single mom. So shocker. That's not statistically probable in these situations at all. I think that white nationalists get it wrong when they say that, oh, well, she was a mug shark, so she's now, I don't want to help her. I think it's the same kind of purity posturing as well, my stars, I would never say the N-word, and I could never support, I don't know where this accent came from, by the way, but it just feels natural. I could never support someone who uses such language. I don't care if it means that they're destitute. I mean, I just think that they're both part of the same purity hoity. You be proud of being white. I'm so freaking proud that I'm a white person. I love being white. I love my white ancestors. I love my white heritage. I love white culture. But I also understand if you're against feminism and you're against the 19th Amendment, you understand that women are susceptible to manipulation and they are really geared towards groupthink. And from the moment that you're born, especially in America as a white person, you are indoctrinated into this guilt and to this self-hatred and to this idea that the white man has created oppression and they were the pinnacle of evil and slavery, and every single darker melanin person around you need to kiss their feet and you need to have lots of black friends. And black friends are great, by the way, not the ones who are completely self-pitying and think that they're I love my black friends, and I hate when people are like, oh, I have black friends. I just mean I do there's always there's some white people that if I had 100 seats on a boat, there's a lot of white people that wouldn't make it on that boat. You know what? And when it comes to the nationalist front, we know that nigger culture is pushed onto white women, and that they're pushed into the arms of people who abuse them and leave them. And then when that happens, what is she supposed to do in this situation? I'm not saying she was abused. I don't know if she was abused. I don't know why the guy left. But you got to assume he was either shot or he walked out. One or the other. And I say that with a bit of brevity. I a little bit of humor. But he's gone. He's not in the picture anymore. And what is she supposed to do with her kid who's dying of cancer? She's supposed to say, oh, well, that nigga's bad, and now I'm gonna kick this kid out onto the street. What is she supposed to do? What's a mother supposed to do? They're gonna still love their child. So it's again, I think being too militant about anything is a really big mistake. And I think that a lot of white nationalists get that wrong. And I think a lot of them are getting it right. There are still, you see, if you could pull up that tweet, that would be really great.
The one from
yeah, Tom. We still have pro-white people who are willing to support people who may have made mistakes in their past, and may have, you know, mixed race children. And that's not to say that they're going to join you know, your socialist party. It's or your you know, your National Socialist Party. It doesn't mean that they're going to start going to you know, your white groups. But the fact that the idea that like being a white nationalist means that you are devoid of empathy for people like that is like, oh, well, like now she's absolutely off limits. No. I think that that's retarded. I think that that's a fucking grease trap. And I think if you understand the manipulation in society, specifically in like feminism, modern feminism, because feminism and like racial stuff and all this other like homosexual stuff, like all of it is intertwined. It's all part of the same like activist leftist nonsense, and they group them all together, and you know, they're all trying to show each other how woke they are. So some chick is like, I'm gonna go on a solo trip to Afghanistan, and then she gets fucking murdered. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know, it's just the way it is. And like, again, I'll put this up. You can't blame some people. The indoctrination racial mix normalization runs deep this day and age. And that's what I'm saying. Like, have your beliefs, have your beliefs that, because like I said, I'm a white nationalist. I don't think that, like, I think supremacists is, you know, because certainly whites aren't supreme in every regard, especially, you know, when you look at like the Asian community and IQ, like they blow white people out of the water. But that doesn't mean that I'm not proud to be white, that I'm not proud and want my country, a white founded Christian nation, to remain a white majority Christian nation. But I'm not going to throw out this woman because she loves her mixed race son either. It's never going to happen. And I think that more people need to understand. And you know, people are going to say like, oh, you're an overly empathetic woman, whatever. That all that might be true. But I think that like at some point you have to acknowledge there has to be a baseline of human decency.
Yeah. I would not describe myself as a supremacist of any kind, except human supremacist. That is specifically a retort against the ethical vegans. But I'm not a white supremacist. I believe all men are created equal under God, and we're all equal in dignity.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up, but there's, and I don't really even want to draw attention to the tweet by showing it, but there was a tweet earlier talking about like, you can't be pro-white and Christian, you have to pick one or the other. And I just think that that's nonsense. That's nonsense. Like,
you can be pro-white, you can be you can be pro-black, you can be pro-Mexican, you can be pro-Japanese, you can be pro-America, you can be pro whatever.
And, you know, perhaps I'm not stringent enough for some white nationalists, but, you know, even in Return to the Land, where they understand that being white is something that is under attack, and that it's okay to want to live in your own community. They still like the president, Eric, he still interacts with the Hodge twins. He's like, you can't, you know, they were like, we're 40% white, can we move in? He's like, no, but you can live next door. And you know, I think he means that. I think you know, if somebody, if like an Enrique Tarrio, or if you know, the Hodge twins or Myron Gaines or whatever wanted to buy property nearby, I don't think anybody would go pick at their house. I mean, I think some of these idiots would. You know, they can't all be gold. And I do love most of the people. I've encountered a few that have been kind of testy with me. we'll keep that in our little group. I don't need to spill any tea beyond that. But every group has its problems, guys, and we're not absent of that. But I think the greater understanding and the greater agreement is that we want our own community, but we're not going to be separatist from the community at large. Like, it's not Waco style. We're not like, we have to be separate, but also a part of. We want our own community, but we want to engage with the world around us instead as well. We want to have people active in local politics. We want to have people active in local infrastructure, people in education, people even just in trade. It's important. And, white people having white babies. It's really important. We got to get those reproduction numbers up. What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, the birth rate is low almost everywhere, and it is particularly low among white people. Yeah, we need to have more white babies.
Well, actually, in the last year, there was more white babies delivered than other races, so that's a good sign. But we need to go more in that direction. And I'm not, again, people like to twist ideas like of that into eugenicist ideology, and it's really not. Wanting prosperity for your own race doesn't have to come at the cost of other people's livelihoods. I mean, illegal aliens, get them all out. Get them, every one of them. Get their brothers, their sisters, their kids, their babies. Get them out. Bye-bye. See you later.
It's really a low IQ thing to do the whole like, so what you're saying is, and then you just like build a straw man. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I do want America to have more white babies. That doesn't, I'm not saying 10 other things that people would think I'm saying. I'm not saying those things, and don't pretend I'm saying those things in your low IQ. If you think I'm saying those things, sorry.
Well, I mean, that's honestly, when I debate leftists often because I'm a moron and I decide to waste my time. But I mean, and I've had a couple where we've at least agreed to disagree, which is better than nothing. But more often than not, they'll get these like moral grandstandings, like the one we're talking about now, and it'll be like, okay, well, I think you start with the basic simple idea of, I think that white people should be having more babies. And the one I get most often in response is, oh, so you want all the other people to just like not have babies. Well, number one, I don't want immigrants having babies here at all, so they can just go away. But no, like 50% of Black pregnancies end in abortion. Like, I'm pretty actively against abortion, so maybe I'm less racist than they are.
I don't want them to have their abortions.
It's like, no, the idea that I want this doesn't mean that like I'm trying to say to genocide Blacks, genocide Asians, genocide Native Americans. It's simply saying this is a white nation, this is a white country. We should be passing laws and giving tax benefits to families who make who like expand and have lots of kids. It benefits the economy in a lot of ways, and it also incentivizes American families to have kids. And I understand America has become the mixing pot, but this is still a white country, and I still wish it to remain a white predominant country. The same way that they would say in Israel, the same way that they would say in Japan. They don't want it to become they don't want more Black people to take over Japan. They don't want Japanese in Israel. They want to have their majority, and that's fine. I want us to have our majority as well. And I'm sick of it being treated as if there's any sort of difference whatsoever.
Yeah. Ditto.
So, for the end of this segment, I just would like to pull up. Do we have Tom's?
Please. Yeah, let me bring it back up again. I have to share screen.
That's totally fine. Do we have a banner ready as well? Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
here.
We have a banner.
Okay, so at the bottom here, I have the Give, Send, Go for these 4 individuals. And if you are also as fatigued as the rest of us, if you're experiencing the Karmelo Anthony effect, please take a screenshot and take down these Give, Send, Go links. And if you can, send some money, please do that. If you are unable and to afford to send money right now, totally understandable. Things are expensive. Life is expensive. Kids are expensive. Everything's expensive. At the very least, even if you do not share this show, which I also ask that you do, please share these links around to your friends. Share them on your social media, share them to your family, share them on a text message, share them with your buddies, and let people know it's okay to not feel guilty about being white anymore. It's that era of white guilt is over. The death bell has rung, and it's more and more people are going to catch on to that. Who knows how quickly it'll be, who knows how long it'll take. But I do believe that that era of white guilt is over. People are really sick of watching tribalism in the form of defending not just criminal blacks in America, but illegal aliens who come over here to take advantage of our government aid, to take advantage of getting, sometimes even up to thousands of dollars, more than people who are able to get, on welfare benefits. And these are not people who are willing to assimilate. And again, this is one of those things. Assimilate doesn't mean that you lose your heritage. Assimilate doesn't mean that you entirely stop your cultural practices. Assimilation simply means that you learn the practices and the expectations socially that you have here in America, and you respect them. We're not going, we don't even need to go down there. I could go down there.
I was just going to say, when I visit Italy, I try to, learn the ethics of, like, restaurant, how to behave myself, what to do, what not to. I try to assimilate as much as I can as a visitor, so yeah. 100%.
Exactly.
Like, why wouldn't you?
You learn how to say please and thank you in their language.
Yes.
Even if you're not going to live there, you should learn the language if you're going to live there. But if you're going to visit, you learn to say, like, excuse me, please, and thank you.
Scusi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These are just, I feel like white people just like assume these things. Like a lot there, of course, there's the groups that don't. But I feel like white people, by and large, just like have this ingrained in our moral fiber, where it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to respect the customs of the place that I'm going. And these people just don't have that. Some cultures are just not compatible. And we keep seeing that over and over and over again. And again, the Karmelo Anthony effect. We're done being nice about it. I don't feel bad about a Somali girl about a girl getting harassed by Somalis at Cinnabon, who decides, I don't care about my job at Cinnabon. I'm going to say, suck it and fuck you. I don't feel as bad about that, because literally a guy just got off for stabbing, a black guy just got off for stabbing a white guy, because after he was stabbed, check it, after, not before he was stabbed, the white guy called the black guy a nigger.
Yeah,
it literally was enough to get him off the charges. What kind of, like, we're incentivizing and we're calling open season on white people, and the evidence is right in front of you. There's no way to deny it anymore. It's very much like with the COVID stuff at the very beginning. You're called a conspiracy theorist. Why would the people do that? It's the same ordeal. It's been open season on whites for decades. And that started with the floods of illegal immigrants from all over third world nations to here, because suddenly we needed to be the Mecca of the world. Well, we're done with that. We're deporting you and your babies, and criminals get separated from their families. I don't know what to tell you. Go home, self-deport, because the end is here. White guilt is over. Everybody's going to get the message eventually, and that's just that. Charles, do you have anything you want to end with?
I was never feeling guilty about anything.
I did. I grew up in New York City, where everything was my fault.
Yeah.
And
I'm a quarter German. I don't feel guilty about anything the Germans did once
I'm like
upon a
9 or
time.
10% German in me. I don't know. Something
Yeah.
to that effect.
I'm because I'm also a quarter Irish, and the Irish were persecuted really badly at the beginning of America, but I don't feel entitled because of that.
You mean you don't
like, it
think that
goes
we
both
deserve
ways.
reparations for Nina?
Yeah, like in the same way that I should pay reparations because of my German heritage, I should receive reparations because of my Irish heritage. It's all so stupid. Like, you're not entitled to anything, and you're also not guilty of your ancestors. Like, shut up and move on with your life, and let's just get along or something like that.
And I will say this to wrap up. You know what? No, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that for another time. I'm going to tuck it away because it's actually a really solid point and worthy of a whole episode. So, haha, teasers. So, thank you guys very much for joining. I'm going to play Barry's ad one more time because I'm really excited about this Patty fight. I think we've officially found a gym. I would like to officially announce that it's okay. I can't officially announce it. I'm like 98.99999% sure we have a gym that's willing to host. It's going to be in Florida. You guys better buy tickets. It's going to be a crazy event. Paul is going to kick Patty's ass. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that in my mind. Patty says he's got some Hail Mary that he's going to throw up. We'll see. I know a couple people are rooting for Patty, so we'll see how that turns out. But guys, let's keep on them. We got it. We can't let this die. We cannot let this die. We have to make sure this happens. So again, thank you guys very much for following us over here at WARPAINT. Follow Chief Bacher and Culture over on X and subscribe to both of our pages. I promise it is worth the $3 a month. Subscribe to us on YouTube or subscribe to us on Rumble. Make sure you're following us on X, TikTok, and Instagram. All of those links are in the caption on X, and I will add them to X. They're on YouTube and on Rumble right now. I'll add them to my X comments as soon as we log off. And before we wrap up today's episode of WARPAINT, a word from our sponsors over at Warboy Studios. This has been WARPAINT. I hope that you wore it well.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get ready to rumble. Barry Ramey here with the Warboy Studios, and I have for you an official update. Negotiated through none other than our very own colleague, Kim Coulter, Patrick Riley of Patty Don't Surf has agreed to challenge Paul Miller, the Gypsy Crusader, in a one-on-one bare-knuckle brawl. Previously, a few weeks ago, on Kim Coulter's show, WARPAINT, Patrick Riley of Patty Don't Surf used some very ominous and very harsh tone with our guest, Gypsy Crusader. When asked to walk back that statement, Patrick did not do so and doubled down. And I know what you're probably thinking, that there's no way the Gypsy Crusader stands a chance against somebody who is the epitome of liberal masculinity, such as Patrick Riley. Paul Miller has an extensive background in mixed martial arts and competitive fighting, while Patrick Riley took pictures on a Navy boat, and he once kissed Stephen Colbert on the mouth. Tune in to the Warboy Studios and hit that notification button so you can be first on the scene when Patrick Riley and the Gypsy Crusader go one-on-one, bare-knuckle style. Warboy Studios, I'm out.